All right, let's see if everything is working here. Let me make sure my volume is correct. Wait for a few people to get in here before we start chatting. I'll put one more link here. Social media. We are going live. For a few people to get in here before we start. No reverb or anything here. Will I lose shingles and how many? Washington weather chasers in the house. First moderator in. You can see our storm out here. The one, I'm hearing chatter about this from people. They're asking a lot of questions at work, like at Alaska Airlines and stuff. And this is probably getting a little bit more coverage than it deserves. This storm system out here is going to be just far enough away where it does bring some strong winds east portions again, mainly east of Seattle and Everett, things like that. Again, the foothill areas, the typical east wind exposed locations are probably going to get pretty darn windy tomorrow afternoon and evening. But this is not the same windstorm that what was going on in November. That one was on a different level for sure. It was a deeper low, had colder air east of the mountains. The pressure gradient was a little bit better, and the inversion was a bit stronger also. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. Yeah, Buckley is likely to get some good winds out of this storm. I think I'll zoom in on that and we'll go ahead and take a look here. So I'll back this out a little bit more here also. Let's go to Pacific Northwest. Actually, we'll go to Northwest. So this is where our storm system is out there right now. It's off to the left of the screen here. There's Washington State, there's Oregon, there's British Columbia. And there's what's rolling up tomorrow night. Some pretty strong winds for the Oregon coast. Gusty winds interior, and you can also see them peak right there across some of the east wind prone areas across the foothill communities. And that might get out into some areas that get up into Snohomish County and Skagit, and maybe Whatcom a little bit there as well. But it's definitely not what we just went through. But, you just got to call attention to it. There's probably going to be some localized gusts up over 60 miles per hour. Big waves in Hawaii today. Yes, they did. Maple Valley, former Alaska Airlines employee. Nice. Welcome. Yeah, so we got the one tomorrow. You notice that one out there. And this one, it rapids deeply. So you might hear that term bomb cyclone. Don't be worried by that term. It's just deepening a certain amount of the pressure's dropping a certain amount in a given time. And, that's not the big thing to be concentrating on. Obviously, you want to know about your local impacts and your local winds and whatnot. But this is storm one. So this is a very, probably afternoon tomorrow. And as we go through the night tomorrow, very early Christmas Eve. And you can see the blow this is going to bring for some places. Like the Northwest Washington coast is going to get pretty windy. And look at Vancouver Island, pretty darn windy as well. Strait of Georgia could be pretty breezy with this system. Portions of the coast of western British Columbia off to the north of Vancouver Island. So yeah, that one's going to pack a punch for those locations. But this is not a low pressure system that's diving inland that's going to bring powerful windstorm to Seattle or Portland or Vancouver, BC or anything like that. But things will get gusty for some select locations. You can also see how strong the winds are across some of the higher terrain of eastern Oregon. Yeah, just based on how rapidly it deepens. So if I go like this and I go duplicate tab and we go to pressure and we take a look there, we can back this up, or we'll scroll forward. And you can see, even if we start from here, 992, that's about 18Z. It's about 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. 8 millibar drop, 10 millibar drop, and 8 more. So right there in just, what is that? I mean, you're talking about, that's an amazing pressure drop right there. You're going from 84 to 66 to 60. So you're dropping 26 millibars in what? Actually, let's start over again. Let's go from 92 to 60. That's 32 millibars from 18Z to what? 06Z. So that's what, 12 hours? That's incredible. That's a big pressure drop. But again, that's just telling you what the storm is doing out there. This is not what local impacts are. But so if you hear the term bomb cyclone, technically that's correct. But what we're worried about is what kind of winds this is going to kick off. So another storm that's probably higher impact is probably going to come somewhere on the 27th. The Europeans been hinting at it. So is the GFS. Yeah, now we got to talk about flooding upcoming next as well. And also the big winds, big waves. So yeah, we've been hyping that up for the last few days as well. And that's kind of ongoing along with some of the coastal areas. But first, let's go ahead and scroll to see what's coming. So this is what is on the day Christmas Eve. That frontal system is moving through. A little bit of a break on Christmas Day. But quickly, things start to change. You can see this pressure gradient starting to really tighten here. And then as we scroll through the day on Thursday, we're going to have this baroclinic boundary up the coastline, and that's going to be ushering in our next storm. You can see it out there, 977 millibar low, and it kind of maintains that as it moves towards the coastline. And I mean, look at that potent gradient. Oregon coast, got to watch out. Washington coast, and the interior areas as well. Look at that, 981 millibar low. But what you pay attention to is this pressure gradient. So if I scroll forward a little bit more, if you can see that there's, just south of SeaTac there, maybe you're looking down towards Federal Way, you're looking at 996, and then you're looking at 1008. So that's a 12 millibar gradient between Portland and Seattle. Very strong winds potentially. And if that low comes in a little bit deeper, then you start to get into some of the upper echelon of what wind speeds you can get here up some of the Puget Sound. That's a long ways off. I got to tell you, we're looking at 138 hours out right now. So we're just kind of looking at this windstorm potential for now. And there's also other ways we can view this as well. I actually brought something up. This is the ensemble, the European ensemble. So basically you can look at all 25 members here. And if you scroll through, there's 25 here. You can also click on this one. And there's 26 through 50. So you got 50 of them to look at. You can scroll off into the future. You can see, if you can see these little individual dots there with all the lines around them, that is what tomorrow's storm, and you can see the very good model agreement, or the ensemble agreement, I should say. I keep saying that wrong. And then that system, we get a little bit of a break, and then we look off into what is coming on the 27th. So there goes that next system. And you can see there's all kinds of different solutions. Weaker lows, lows that are farther out, deeper lows that are closer to the coastline here, maybe delay to the storm there. But there are some pretty windy solutions showing up here as well. But you can see the future is definitely much more uncertain than what is coming in the short term. So that's pretty typical. But yeah, we do have more windstorm potential upcoming here. So hopefully that makes some sense. Okay, I'm going to catch up on the chat here. Yeah, so that's something I was going to look at. Let me just go ahead. I keep getting questions about the extended forecast, and I'm going to look at that here. Let's go ahead and take a glance at that really quick. I just want to see, for example, even if there's any kind of hype out there in the extended forecast, even with something like the GFS. Let's take a look at that. This is the 18Z. There goes tomorrow's storm. And again, a little bit of a break on Christmas Day. Next frontal system rolls through. And you can see the GFS with a pretty potent system there right in towards the Washington coastline as well. Yeah, 985, 989 millibar low, if those take the correct path, can be quite the wind makers. And you can see strong pressure gradient with that one. Now we'll scroll off and you can see additional frontal systems, additional low pressure systems just rolling towards the coastline. Seems like this is never ending as we go through the 30th. A little bit of a break shows up there. And then we scroll a little bit further off, but you see the kind of a deep low across some of the Gulf of Alaska. That is not very great for Arctic air, but now you can see a bit of Arctic air start to move around here. This is all the way on in through January 2nd. So this is well up, just clipping very north portions of British Columbia here, Yukon, Northwest Territories, some Arctic air there. And if we scroll through here, you really don't see it set up too well, but there is some Arctic air behind the Rockies out there. So it's something we could watch. I mean, it's something to watch, but right now, even the GFS doesn't show too much in the way of getting down there. But at the very end of the run, you got to see that. That would be a little bit interesting. You can see maybe some lower snow levels there, but again, it's really not that strong of a signal. You like it if these gradients bunch up a bit more across some central and southern BC to get some better cold air down into the region, but there's the cold air up there. it's there. So there's always hope in the extended forecast if you look out far enough. But let me take a look at the upper level temperatures really quick as well. So if we take a look at the anomaly there, I mean, it's something. At least there's some Arctic air showing up there in the extended. So, you know, it's not something I would normally get too hyped up about, but it is the long-range GFS. But if we scroll through there, I'll go ahead and play that out again. You can see a lot of it initially comes down and stays just east of the Rockies there. And if you notice, okay, I'm not going to point that out. So it stays east of the Rockies there. And then you can see some of that creeping down into central BC here. But yeah, then when you bring these low pressures up a little bit far north like that, these southerlies at the surface like to keep things warm. Unless you get that short and sweet trajectory of Arctic air off the coast of British Columbia back in towards Pacific Northwest, it can be tough to bring that lower elevation snow into the area. So that's what we'll be watching for. And maybe that low will track in the right position once we get to the extended. But there's your fantasy Arctic air hunt there through the extended forecast. If we take a look, maybe we'll take a look at the artificial intelligence here as well. So let's do temperature anomaly. We'll do 1 day on the European as of 18Z. This one goes out 15 days as well. Let's see if it shows any hint of what we just saw. Storm train, as you can see, active into the Pacific Northwest. Let's go on in towards January. There is something moving around here, as you can see, but that stays largely east of the Rocky Mountains. Rocky Mountains would keep us safe from that, but it does show a different a pattern change here. As you can see, some cooler air here and more of a Pacific North American negative oscillation, maybe setting up when we get to troughing a little bit closer to the coastline. But yeah, that's definitely a pattern change as we go on into the early ports of January, but still no promises just yet. Okay, catch up on chat here. Yeah, I know there's been some significant power outages here over the last month and a half for sure. My neighbor, a couple houses down, lost a big spruce tree as well, or it broke halfway up. So it was pretty interesting looking also. So there's been some pretty, some pretty decent damage out there at times. We had 48 and 49 mile per hour gusts in those back-to-back windstorms here last week. Is Covington? Yeah, I mean, I would watch out because places like Ken East Hill can get windy in situations like this. So yeah, you might get gusty. It's not going to be like what you got in November though. I mean, I remember coming down Highway 164 there in Auburn and just trees hanging on power lines and transformers laying on the ground and power poles down, and it's just an absolute mess. Huge trees down everywhere. So it is not going to be like that. We're not looking at that kind of storm here tomorrow. So just because you hear the term bomb cyclone, I don't know. Somebody must be talking about it even more than I am because I keep getting questions about it, or maybe it is me. But that bomb cyclone, if I back this up, you'll see this thing is off the coastline. So here we go. That's tomorrow. You can see that thing's far enough away. But what it is going to do is bunch up this pressure gradient here. And we got a bit of that pressure differential between what's going on east of the mountains. And that's going to bring some of those winds here as the system moves across the region. And yeah, I mean, there is a bit of mountain wave probably, and there's a bit of an inversion, but it's not going to be like November 19th. You don't have to worry for that huge widespread damage, but you still could have tree damage out across the area. And I don't see any wind advisories or anything like that up right now, but something interesting. I thought I'd point this out. So let's go. Let's see. Oh, we can't see it there. So I'm going to back out again. You see that red box out there off the Washington coast? That's actually a hurricane force wind warning. Kind of interesting there. You don't see these a lot. But let's see, when is the timing on this? Let's see, hurricane force wind warning. Cape Lookout between 150. So what is the timeline? Do they have a timeline on here? I don't see the timeline. I'm assuming this is for the next storm. I guess tonight, Monday night, Tuesday. Okay. You can see how the winds get going 60 knots, 65 knots, seas 20 to 30 feet. So yeah, kind of interesting there. Thought I'd point that out. Yeah, you can ignore the GFS on that one. Here, let me show you something. So I'm going to zoom in on Pacific Northwest a little bit more, and we'll go through kind of tomorrow a little bit. So you can see it's not a long-lasting one. You can see about 10 p.m. right there. It's pretty windy there across some of the foothills here. But again, this is not what we went through last month. I'm just gonna, we're just kind of trying to sound the alarm a little bit here for some damage. But you can see pretty windy across the northwest interior also. And then it kind of turns southerly across the Puget Sound as we go through Christmas Eve morning. What we have to watch out for is after we go to the 27th, if you guys are just joining, look at that thing here. Look at this bent back occlusion into the Washington coast. And look at some of these winds surging up the Puget Sound. 37 sustained knots right there for SeaTac and for Everett, looks like. Yeah, that'd be a pretty good blast of wind up the Puget Sound and pretty potent system there. And if we take a look at the GFS on that one, let's take a look at what it's showing. Let's go to 80 meter wind speed. And we'll back that up because the GFS has had a couple big boys rolling around out here also. It looks like that one on the 26th. So there you go. GFS bringing one in a day earlier versus what the European is showing. But yeah, if we back this up, this is for tomorrow, and it shows the wind there a little bit, but yeah, it's not very strong. However, if you look at the HER, let's do 80 meter wind speed. We'll go to the 0Z run, and we'll go on in towards tomorrow. You can see as we go through tomorrow afternoon, look at the winds across the west slopes of the Cascades here. They're picking up pretty well by the time we get towards tomorrow evening, and some pretty strong winds there. The highest winds keep showing just east of North Bend on I-90. But yeah, you're going to get some gusty winds, probably Kenny's Hill out towards Renton a bit. It has backed off for like SeaTac. A couple of days ago, it had 50 plus mile per hour gust at time for SeaTac. It had some big winds for Renton. Renton back down into the 40s here, so you can see. And you see some of these stronger winds. Once these southeast winds, this is kind of unusual direction here. For the most part, and some of the easterly winds across some of Snohomish County also. If you get one of these surfacing, even if it's not that mountain wave is not as robust as what happened in November, you can still get tree damage and power outages. So I just want people to be aware of that for tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. You see these winds coming out, kind of getting out to the lowlands here across a lot of, some of Pierce, King, Snohomish, Skagit, and Whatcom County. Northwest Interior, Strait of Georgia, Vancouver Island, if you're out over the open water, or some of the coastal areas are going to get pretty gusty as well. Okay, so let me check back here. Yeah, we're just in an active pattern right now. I mean, that's why these windstorms continue to roll in here. I think we get lowland snow this winter. Yeah, snow is always such a crapshoot here in the Pacific Northwest. You can break yourself trying to predict it. That's why you notice that, that's kind of, I get excited about all kinds of stuff. So it makes it easier to try to wait for, everybody's favorite thing, which is the snowstorm. So if you're too caught up in trying to pinpoint when the next big Arctic outbreak is going to come, you're going to drive yourself crazy. If you get sick, you have someone that can fill in for you for a day or two. There's probably a couple people that could do it for a day or two, I think, but I'm not sure. A lot of my videos that I do in one take. So I don't ever edit videos. Like my daily videos are unedited. I start, I do my briefing, I try to do it in one take, and that's it. I just send that video out like that. I do not do any editing or anything. So people kind of seem to be a bit surprised by that, but that's the way I do it. And it saves me a little bit of time sometimes doing it that way, but you can really run down some rabbit holes if you start editing every single video that you do. But yeah, I don't have anybody in place currently that would do my briefings if I got sick or something. Yeah, this isn't going to be, the only thing is the wind direction is out of the east a bit here. So if this does peak out into some areas that even on November 19th, maybe you didn't get that strong of winds out of the east, maybe some of these will creep out and it can still do tree damage. It's not the dominant wind direction here across the region for the most part. But places like Enumclaw, you're going to be windy tomorrow. You might gust 60 miles per hour, 65 or something like that, or North Bend or Buckley and places like that. But this is not anything out of what happens, a couple times a year as far as the east wind events go. Yeah, the models do show it cooler than normal. Like I showed you guys, there is And if we go to, let's go to the 12Z European here really quick. It does show somewhat of a pattern change as you go far enough out in the extended. I mean, I'll be happy just to get away from the southwest moist flow here, because we're going to have some flooding issues also coming up here pretty soon. Let me do this. So you can see there is some Arctic air on the move. Even if you go out in the European as of 12Z, this goes out about 360 hours. You can see it is moving around out here. So you never know how this is going to play out. But the Rocky Mountains are a tough obstacle to overcome. To get the really cold air here, you really got to set it up very nicely. You have to bring some of that Arctic air out over the Pacific Ocean. You got to get cyclogenesis. That has to be in the right place. The cold air mass has to be deep enough to get out over the terrain. So you can see it's moving around. Maybe we'll get that pattern change, hopefully. Brian Hicks, high tier channel support. Welcome, buddy. Thank you very much for your support. Yeah, and we can do the weeklies as well. Let's do the weeklies. Let's look at, so 1 day anomaly. So we'll go out. This is January 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, mid-month. I mean, at least there's this cold signal out here. You see it. So that's better than having something just completely reversed there for us. Looking a bit more La Nina-ish. And that goes on through the end of the month here as well. So that could be a kind of an indicator here that maybe some Arctic air at times getting down into the region. That would be kind of fun. That goes to all the way to February 5th, by the way. You can see the cooling normal across Alaska. And if we take a look at surface temperature, we'll look at 2 meter temperature anomaly 7 days. So, see, that's not bad. Maybe that will include some Arctic air. So basically, if I go back to where we are now, you can see that quickly kind of starts to get below average as we go on in towards the early portion of January. So that's not bad to see. You could do worse if you're a snow lover looking for stuff in January. Yeah, no, I want snow. I'm not bashing anybody for complaining about not getting snow. I understand. I want snow. I know that I used to always look out into the extended forecast and just kind of base the forecast. Are we going to get some snow? Is there any kind of snow chances? But as I've gotten older, I guess I just kind of try to scale it back a little more because I just drive myself crazy. Checking out the ensemble mean here of the 18Z. Yeah, we're going to remain active. You can kind of see it all the way out through next Saturday. Kind of this baroclinic boundary out here forcing a Pacific Northwest rainfall. Let's take a look here at the precipitation here. Let me go down to percentile. We'll go to 75 just for the heck of it. But yeah, you can clearly see this is just over the next 144 hours. And Southern California is just getting a skunk, I tell you. And West Coast, North, Bay Area north to the Pacific Northwest, just some big amounts showing up here. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Yeah, it's just through the 28th. So yeah, and it depends on how fast and furious this comes. I was going to show some of this as well. Okay, so yeah, this is what's coming up here with the east wind event. Even some of these winds might get out towards SeaTac, get some blustery winds. But again, it's not as crazy as what it was showing a couple days ago. This is that next storm system out here, and you can kind of see how these things are just all over the place. You can see the uncertainty in that next forecast coming up with the European. A lot of these ensemble members do not have strong winds for SeaTac, for example, but you can see there is a pretty good amount of 50 plus. There's even a couple 60 plus mile per hour gusts in there. But right now, you just kind of take that with a grain of salt. However, the control run, as I showed you, is up over 50 miles per hour. I got somebody buzzing me there, sorry. Snoqualmie Pass is going to be windy tomorrow as well. This is tomorrow night. Look at that 54 in the control run. Pretty good agreement for some 50 plus mile per hour gusts. That's both Snoqualmie. Look at Renton showing 42 last run here, but you see the winds are stronger. Well, what's the highest temperature that's considered Arctic air? Well, you consider Arctic air more by its air mass characteristics. You'll get Arctic air that forms in, of course, Arctic regions. That's why we call it Arctic air. So it's an air mass characteristic, really. Arctic air can be cooler than normal, but a lot of times, one of the main things, let me see if I can point this out to you guys here. One of the main takeaways of Arctic air is its lack of moisture. It's usually an extremely dry and cold air mass. So if we look out, the GFS had plenty of Arctic air kind of across some of western. So that we're looking at, let's do 1 day. Yeah, I want to point out where the Arctic air is. You can kind of see it moving around there, some of western Canada, off to the east of the Rockies. But if we go to surface moisture and we go to dew point, and that doesn't really point it out too well. I wish this was a little bit better. I mean, you can see how dry the air mass is, but that's one of the characteristics of Arctic air, is just how dry it is. And that's a lot of times when you get Arctic air into place and you get this really dry air into the Pacific Northwest, and then you bring an overrunning event into it, you can get that evaporative cooling in the lower levels of the atmosphere, and you can actually get snowfall, you know, just one of our typical Pacific Northwest systems if there's Arctic air already in place. But that doesn't really, I mean, it kind of shows it there, but let's see. And relative humidity is not going to do it as that great. Maybe precipitable water. Maybe that's a little bit of a better look for it. But you can see, so let me show you here. Let's go back to upper air temperature, 850 millibar. We'll go to the anomaly so you can see actually kind of where it is, and we'll show you here. Let's look at this right here, east of the Rockies. We'll take a look at that, and we'll take a look at surface moisture, and we'll look at precipitable water. And I don't know, it's not showing it that, it doesn't show it that well, but you can see how truly dry it is. But yeah, Arctic air just comes from an Arctic region. Probably rambling on a little too much there, sorry. Yeah, there's windstorm potential really anywhere across Pacific Northwest coming in here. Let me show you. Did I have the ensemble up here? Let's see. Where did I put it? This is kind of what like looking at an ensemble run is here. You could do Windstorm, and then you could do Seattle, Portland, Quileute, Vancouver, BC, and Medford, Oregon, or something. And as you get closer to the forecast, you imagine the Plinko chip is closer to the bottom here, and this is maybe 7 days out of the top. By the time you get down here, it's maybe 2 days out, so you kind of have a better idea where that Plinko chip is going to fall by the time it gets down towards the bottom of that. So kind of a look at what an ensemble, what a meteorologist might think an ensemble forecast might look like. Okay, let's do this. I'll just go to European ensemble mean. Oops. So if we go to pressure here and we go to, so here's what we're looking at. So this is where the Plinko chip is falling, and you know it's going to fall right here. So you can see all the clustering of the low pressure centers there. In fact, if we just go in here and go U.S. region, we'll go to Northwest. So basically, since we're in the short term right now, the ensemble members for tomorrow's storm know that low pressure is going to be right around here, and you can see the ensemble mean showing up. And again, there's that tight pressure gradient, which is going to bring us our east and southeast winds here across the region. And then if we scroll out a little bit more towards the 27th, the European has a fairly powerful windstorm during this time period, but you can see there's no ensemble agreement. The ensemble agreement is fairly poor, but you can also see there's a pretty tight pressure gradient here as well. And we know there's going to be probably a storm in the vicinity here. We just don't know how strong it is going to be, what the track is going to be, what the pressure gradient is going to be like just quite yet. And yes, Arctic air is dry. Garrett Harton. Plinko, is it Plinko or Blinko? I don't know. I don't even know the name of that game anymore. Oh yeah, that reminds me. I was going to look at the NAM by the Weller's Way. So, by the way, let's go ahead and take a look at that. We'll go to North American model, 3 kilometer, and we will take a look at pressure. Yeah, the 0Z should be done running here. The Her and the NAM were showing some interesting solutions here because they were kind of, looks like they were getting a little bit confused by this low pressure center here. Let's take a look at what they have, this last one. And it's even deeper and further west with the low now. See the pressure gradient across the Cascades there. But if I bounce this back towards 12Z, okay, so it was a bit closer for 12Z. Let's go back to 0Z yesterday. It is deeper, same location, but it is a deeper low. And you can see it kind of showed this wobbling a little bit closer here as of last night. But yeah, the high resolution models are having a little bit of difficulty. If I can still, I wonder if the Her still shows it. Let's do this. Let's go to 0Z Her, and we'll go to 18Z. Looks like we got them both. That's good. Nope. Back, there we go. So check this out. Look at the 18Z had this a weaker low, but closer. Kind of struggling with the position of that low. None of the other models were really showing it that close. You can see the difference in the pressure gradient for Washington coastline there. And let's see if we can do. Let's take a look at the 02. How far does this go out? You can just see the initial development of that, so we won't pay attention to that yet. Oh, but let's get back to what we were looking at here. Let's go to Elijah. Thanks for the generosity. Keep on rocking. To get some science winter to work out toward the. Yeah, like we were showing. I hope you caught that. Let's look at that one more time since Elijah brought that up, and we'll go to upper air temperature. We'll go to 850 millibar anomaly. Actually, let's do this. I like the weeklies better. European weeklies. And we can do the 1 day running. No, let's do the 7. Let's do the 7 day. But yeah, if you guys are just joining or you missed this, you can see we do have this colder signal here as we go through the month of January. I'm scrolling back and forth. You can kind of see it existing out there. Definitely a pattern change from where we are right now. Am I on the... Okay, I can do the control too, so let's try the control. But yeah, you can see that we got some chillier air out there at times. There we go. That's not a bad signal there. I mean, this would probably mean some ridging up in Alaska and maybe that jet stream diving back down here. Actually, they have upper air wind, so let's go ahead and look at that. Actually, this is the anomaly. That's not going to work. We can go to heights, though, and we can kind of generate it from that. So let's scroll through here. We're looking at 1 day at a time. The weeklies, we're looking way off into the extended forecast. Let's see what we got. Are we going to get any ridging out there across the Pacific and allow some of that stuff to come down and get us? I mean, if you're really grasping at straws, you can look out towards January 30th there. Big ridge steering this trough back out over the west coast of British Columbia. And that would be a nice look there. But yeah, I mean, that's just totally grasping at straws. But we do have that signal. And if I back this back up and we go to European weeklies and we go to... Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest signal, but it's there. Yeah, so it's like, okay, I keep getting sidetracked here. Let's go to surface wind speed. So this is the North American model. I'm going to zoom in on this just so we can see what the latest is saying for tomorrow. You'll see that low developing. You see the winds picking up out over the open water. And you can see it's about 4 p.m. You see the winds start to come across the Cascades a bit here. So it looks like it peaks a little bit like 4 and 5, and then it 6, 7, relaxes a little bit, but then picks back up again here as we go towards 10, 11, midnight, and then it relaxes a bit more. So yeah, this is, I mean, if you guys are joining me here, this storm coming tomorrow is not what was happening last November, so you don't need to worry about that. But it is an east wind event here, and if those get out towards Kenny's Till and Renton and things like that, and out in Snohomish County a little bit there, they can cause some damage and some power outages. But this is not a huge, massive region-wide windstorm. Much bigger deal across some of Vancouver Island. Undervolt, thanks for the generosity. But we do have windstorm potential coming off into the future. And actually, I want to look at the NAM 12K. I want to see this real quick. Look out the NAM a little bit. We'll go to regions and we'll go to Northwest. And let's take a look at this. Actually, how far can we look out into the... Yeah, we can. I forgot we have this view. So let's go ahead and look at this and compare it a little bit. So there's tomorrow's storm. And then we get our atmospheric river on Christmas. Yeah, you can see something is a brewing here with the North American model. That is an interesting track there, folks. That could mean trouble. That's a 984 millibar low right here, 983 maybe. With, you know, you're looking at 5.9. 13, 17, 21. That's a big pressure gradient on the south side. I wish that went out a little bit further because that would be packing a punch right here. You're looking at 20 millibars right there. That's not even the length of the Oregon coast. 20 millibar pressure gradient, pretty wicked. Upper air wind, what do we got? Yeah, you can see that thing would be packing a punch. These are the kind of windstorms that can really bring big damaging winds for the Oregon, Washington coast and into the interior areas as well. Look at that ride in on that. This is at 2,500 feet here, but let's look at 500 millibars. Yeah, I've been watching this for a while now. I was telling my Discord chat about this a few days ago. This is some pretty good windstorm potential as we go through the 26th, 27th, 28th possibly. You get these systems moving in. They're moving on the shore here as they're deepening, and you can really start to bring the stronger winds to the interior portions. Issaquah, yeah, you'll probably get some good wind gusts tomorrow. It's not going to be as strong, but you know, you could have some tree damage for sure. It's just something to be aware of. You don't want to be out walking your dog at night and get caught by those winds or something like that. I mean, you'll probably be able to look outside as that's going on and understand that, but you know, just kind of have that in the back of your mind. Kind of typical east wind event. Oh, Discord's just a chat. There's Pacific Northwest other chasers that I chat with sometimes. And yeah, we just kind of chat about current weather events and things like that. But yeah, I've been watching this period and that is a pretty good. There's 300 millibars. There's 250. There's 200. So yeah, pretty good jet stream support. Yeah, nice wrinkle there at 18,000, 10,000, 5,000, 2,500. Surface wind. That's just this is sustained 55 miles per hour. And if you notice, it doesn't look like much right there. I mean, it's kind of deepening as it makes its way to the coastline. So yeah, that's something to be watching. And again, the GFS and the European are pointing at this similar time frame here. Yeah, that would bring a blow to somebody here. That's bad news. And if we take a look at the European, actually, can I get that on here? Let's see. No, it'll show the GFS, so let's do that. The GFS 0Z has not started running yet. How far back can we go? Let's go back. So let's do this. Let's look at the NAM versus itself 6 hours ago. Okay, so there's tomorrow's low here. Coming in a little bit deeper, but it's a little bit further west as well. Then we want to look at this next one. Look at that boundary back here. This tight baroclinic boundary all the way back. Parent low across the Gulf of Alaska. Little development here. This is the 1218Z run. So that was, but that's still a pretty potent gradient. If this thing spins up as it's making landfall and deepening, that would be trouble. And it's coming in even stronger here on the most recent model run. So yeah, fun stuff here. The GFS is starting to run. There we go. Awesome. Okay, we got the GFS going, so we'll put that on the back burner and watch that. We get the European back here as well, the 18Z. Can I get the North America? I can. Okay, that's nice. So we'll take a look at the European versus the NAM. There goes yesterday's run, right? Tomorrow's storm. And let's see what they look like here at about 84 hours. Yeah, it's hard to tell where that development is going to take place. And the North American model is probably ahead of that one. You can see that second low would be the problem child there. Vicious storm right there. So the wind's going to begin tomorrow afternoon out of the east. But again, this is another localized event. We're not dealing with big winds. We're not dealing with those big southerlies. This is not a big region-wide windstorm. This is nothing out of the ordinary here for the Washington, Oregon coast. The big winds are going to be across some of Vancouver Island. And I'll back that up. You can see this deep low out there, pretty potent gradient out there. And the pressure gradient across the Cascades is what's going to be driving this. You can see that's pretty tight there, 4, 8, 12 millibars there, maybe across the Cascades, maybe a little bit higher. We're just looking at a pressure map here. That's the higher pressure inland here versus the low pressure out there. Yeah, GFS goes out 16 days. Let's see, winds for Hoquiam. Yeah, we can take a look at that real quick. So you can see, I mean, this is going to be kind of the southeasterly direction, Hoquiam. Some of the gusts are showing up higher here, but the control has 42. But look at that next storm out there. You can kind of see the sinister values showing up here. Look at that 73 mile per hour gust, a lot of 60s, some upper 60s. But then again, some of these ensemble members don't have more. So if that surface low kind of passes just to the south of Hoquiam, or it comes in much weaker, of course, you're not going to get these big winds. But you can kind of see the potential out here for Hoquiam, Washington coastline. And if we go to Quileute, you probably see something similar. Yes, you will. There's 72. Of course, Northwest Washington coastline is a bit windier, as we know. Sailor Sea dinner will be tacos. Very nice. So yeah, right now we're waiting for this. Let's go ahead and just like set it on reload here and we'll watch this. We got 27 hours. GFS keeping that beast. I mean, that's a really strong low. It's just far away. Let's actually look back at this. I mean, even if you take it for its value at parent, this low pressure center there, 988. Let's go. How far does it how long does it take to get 24 millibar drops? We need to get to 64. 1, 2, 3. That didn't take long at all. That thing just absolutely bombs out tomorrow afternoon. It goes from 978 to 963 in 3 hours. That's incredible. Then a 957. That is a potent storm. That is going to look glorious on the visible and the infrared satellite imagery. And that's this right here. That's this. This is the development area. This is where we are getting that contrast. Very cold air back here. So tropical air out in front. It's going to just really be spinning up. It's going to be a glorious looking mid-latitude cyclone tomorrow on the infrared satellite imagery. Can't wait to see that. I mean, we're going to remain warm. Yeah, we're going to remain warm here still for a few more days. We got some warm, moist southwest flow coming in here. We're looking at a possible pattern change as we go into January, but I wouldn't get your hopes up too much about that just yet. Although some models, like I showed, some of the extended models, are showing the potential for a cooler January, cooler than normal January. So there's going to be the chance. I have a hunch we'll get our shot at Arctic air eventually as we go through January or February coming up here. Of course, you're never going to hear me guarantee any kind of snowfall or anything like that for Seattle or Portland or something like that. But yeah, we're going to get, it'll try to make an attempt to get down here. We'll just have to kind of wait and see how that looks once it does. Yeah, that's the explosive cyclogenesis for sure. But yeah, we also have flooding potential, and I keep getting sidetracked on that also. But yeah, hopefully we can get some of this cooler air around here. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do... This is 24-hour probs of getting 1 inch in 24 hours. So you can see we have... Yeah, we're going to have multiple rounds of it here. I don't know if that's the best thing to show here. Let's do this. Probability of 4 inches or greater. It's not bad. Some of the Willamette Valley getting on the probability there a little bit. 2 inches over the next only 144 hours out too. So virtually 100% for almost the entire region, except for kind of the rain shadowed area off the Olympic Mountains to the north. And of course, east of the mountains. And if we look at, let's go to... Actually, I'm just going to do the regular, the control run here. 24-hour running totals. So here we go through Christmas. Here comes that atmospheric river there. And you can see we're at 1 inch by the time we get to about 10 a.m. But yeah, we got some pretty good rains rolling in. And the problem with this is that we have, these systems just continuously moving over the area. The ground is pretty saturated in a lot of locations right now. So, and you can see more rainfall coming up. We're not really targeting one huge event, but we've got so many different shots of rainfall potentially exceeding an inch for some places like Seattle and Portland in a 24-hour period. And of course, much more across the coastal areas or the Cascades. So we're probably going to have to be getting a little bit closer to these individual frontal systems as they roll through and kind of reassess and reevaluate things as we get closer to each individual event. Okay, how much do we have here on the GFS? Let me refresh this. And we'll bring up the 18Z counterpart here, which had a pretty potent low pressure system as we go on towards after the Christmas time period. There's tomorrow's low there. Beastly storm, but it's far enough away that it's just going to cause some winds, not as strong as what was on November 19th. And then we look to see what is next. Again, this is the 18Z run here on the right. This is the most recent one. And you see the little hint of it right there. You guys spot that? Bear Clinic boundary. There goes that next system development off the Oregon coast. What's it going to do? That's all we got right now. The suspense is killing me. Nope, we got another one. So, yeah, you can see that area development right here. I'm curious to see what the 0Z GFS here shows for that. Yeah, I mean, we'll get a dry period. It looks like during the morning and maybe some of the afternoon on Christmas Day. It looks like, but then that next system comes in is quite wet as we go through Christmas night to the 26th, and then we have additional systems coming in after that. Looks like the 18Z was stronger, but that doesn't mean anything yet because if this is developing closer to the coastline, it could be a bit more potent, but we'll see. The pressure gradient looks a little bit stronger on the last run. But again, I mean, this doesn't mean that much. It's just kind of entertaining to watch these runs come in and kind of see them. But clearly the windstorm potential is still there in the GFS. I mean, yeah, just people in Oregon, you've been having some, some of the Willamette Valley hasn't been too active, but, a storm system like this can change that pretty rapidly. Yeah, we've just entered. That's just the equatorial. You have to you have to maintain that equatorial temperature for a while to be considered in La Nina. But the atmosphere does look like it's acting like a weak La Nina is in place. Very weak. Right now, you're just looking at color. So this is just different pressure. You can see the higher pressure here down across the Northeast Pacific. Lower pressure. These are just 4 millibar isobars. These are just lines telling you what the pressure is at these any given areas. And so they give each one of those areas a different color coding. 1080 versus 880 would be bright pink, and anything in between. So yeah, you're just looking at pressure gradient, pressure differences. Just put the @ symbol in front of whoever you're trying to. I think you can do that, can't you? Like if I do that. I don't know. Did that work? Did that do anything? 78 hours in. But yeah, we've got this wind potential here. That's basically the takeaway of this. This is Christmas night. That storm would be in development off the coastline there. And if you're just joining, the European on the 27th has this thing approaching our coastline. Look at that 981 millibar low. Pretty potent wind maker there. That shows some, I think it showed 55 for Seattle. This is a really intense pressure gradient here setting up across the sound. But again, that's a ways out. Yeah, Panda Express just kind of came off my head one of the times. The Pineapple Express, or not, the atmospheric river was all the way across the Pacific Ocean. Pineapple Express comes from Hawaii. Panda Express comes from China, and you can give maybe the Sushi Express to Japan, or whatever you want to call it, the Pho Express down there to Southeast Asia. And I think and tell me if you guys have noticed this. At the beginning of my videos, the resolution is bad and it looks like things are breaking up and it looks like things are slow loading on YouTube. We found, my friend Aaron Green actually found out what was wrong. I had something wrong with the OBS resolution versus my monitor resolution, and my frames per second were off, so that should be fixed. So every time you play one of my videos on YouTube from now on, it should be clear from the very beginning of my video all the way through the video. So hopefully that got wrapped up today, but it looks good. We ran some test runs and it looks like it's all fixed. So hopefully that is something to look forward to. You guys might have noticed that. We could do Big Island Express. We could do Maui, Molokai Express, Oahu. We could do it maybe even Aleutian Island Express. Pho Express. Okay, GFS, where are you at here? Let's see. Is that it? So the GFS as of 18Z was spinning this one up better there, but you can kind of see it still trying to do something out there along this jet stream. We got good jet stream support, so we're gonna have wind potential as we go to the 26th and 27th. But again, the models are, they're gonna be back and forth. These systems are quite fickle. Yeah, even on like this morning, I had somebody complain about that, saying, yeah, that I tried to upload into 4K or something like that, but that's not the real issue. The issue was that the resolution was different on my monitor versus OBS. So for some reason, it would start the video off for like the first minute would be really kind of grainy looking and just all messed up looking. And I always thought it was YouTube just loading things slowly, but apparently it is for that reason. And it looks like it's been cleared up. So I'm kind of hyped up to do my video tomorrow to see that. Yeah, reflect the sun. So if we cut that sulfur out of the shipping fuels and that stops pumping that into our atmosphere, And so but at the same time, since we took it out, it doesn't reflect the sunlight back. So we're going to go through some temporary warming because of that, most likely, because we're allowing more sun to reach the surface by taking that sulfur out of the shipping fuel. Yeah, I've seen that when I've started my videos up at times. I'm just like, man, YouTube just has some kind of weird lag that they do, and my videos are always blurry at the start. But I think all this time it was my fault, I believe. And I finally asked about it today, and my buddy Aaron Green like told me, and he would check. We checked him on my settings, and sure enough, that was almost certainly it. Yeah, there's gonna be a couple bullets headed our way here as we go through the 26th and 27th. I mean, we've got definitely got some windstorms firing up here off our coast, but who knows how those are going to develop? And you can see additional storms out there as well. Yeah, I mean, there's always a give and take. You don't want to pollute the planet as much as you can. So you take that sulfur out of the fuel, but at the same time, then the sun can get through our atmosphere better. But you can't. We obviously shouldn't be pumping that stuff into our air nonstop. So there's the GFS. What else can we look at here? Anything updating? Let's take a look at this hydrologic outlook. Extended wet period with snow levels above 4,000 feet Thursday through next weekend over the Olympics and into portions of southwestern Washington. Yeah, it looks like we're going to remain above 4,000 largely off in towards next weekend, as you can see there also. So we're not looking at the snow levels dropping down too much, it doesn't look like. High surf advisory. I was thinking about doing waves tomorrow, or should I do wind? And I'm not quite sure yet. I would like to go out and see the waves again, but I think the wind, I don't know. It probably depends on maybe what the European shows tonight, because tomorrow, if I do the winds in the east slopes of the west slopes of the Cascades, then I might get a lenticular show as well. Paul Beckwith has great videos about the reduction in shipping sulfur emissions. Yeah, I don't know what to do because the waves are supposed to be pretty good tomorrow also. In fact, let me look at the latest on. Let's do this. Okay, so lower dynamics, I think, is what I want there. Significant wave height. So when is this? Here we are right about what? So we're about 8 o'clock, about 10 o'clock right there. If I back up. So this was this afternoon, 10, 4 a.m. Yeah, there's going to be some pretty big waves out there, Cape D tomorrow. Probably have to go out for sunrise, though. I think high tide is pretty close to sunrise tomorrow. There should be some pretty good wave action. And round after that as well. Three Russian oil tankers just sank. Well, that's no good. Got more votes for waves. Yeah, I don't know if I want to do wind out there tomorrow. It doesn't look that exceptionally windy. But here, let's look at. This is actually my favorite thing to look at for lenticular cloud potential. And since the 4K is done, we'll go to all and we'll go to 4K. This is Cliff's Mass baby here. So here we go, 9, 10, 11, 12. We go into tomorrow morning. And you notice we get a little bit of a break tomorrow. Maybe you'll even see the sun for a minute out there. Look at that, 10 a.m. Get out there and get that sun for an hour or two. But you can kind of see the lenticular cloud, what would be forming here. So it's close though. The sun sets at like, what, 4:20? So there's 5. So you might see something developing up there. There's 6. It's probably going to be dark by then though. But the coast is a farther drive. So yeah, I don't know. And sometimes it shows up a little bit better here on the 1.3 kilometer. So there is tonight. There's tomorrow morning. A little bit of sun out there tomorrow. Check it out. You guys try to catch a sunbreak tomorrow. 4 and 5, you can see the lenticular show start to go on there a bit across, even off the Olympics too, off some of Mount Adams, Mount Rain, Mount St. Helens, Mount Hood down there as well. So yeah, it might be, I don't know what to do yet. Yeah, I'll probably decide tonight. We'll see. Lincoln City is 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Garrett's always good for a laugh there. High surf warning, Oregon coast, breakers 30 feet. I like some of the wording sometimes. People can be swept off rocks and drown. They don't mince any words in the Portland National Weather Service. They're like, you will die if you go out to watch waves. Destructive waves. But you have to use plain language like that, though, unfortunately. People die every single year along the West Coast because of wave action. I mean, you see those stories where somebody's dog gets in the waves and they go in after it, or a child gets swept away and a parent goes in after, and they both end up perishing, and it's just horrible. %100 chance of winter coming up, you guys. 3 tankers in the Black Sea broke up in stormy weather. That must have been terrifying. Yeah, a big problem with if you get caught in the waves, I mean, you might be able to escape. The problem is you don't have much time. The water's cold and it will sap your energy. And on top of that, you got deadheads and driftwood that weighs hundreds of pounds. I mean, some of those logs, like I've seen big logs get moved up the beach and then the waves come way back, and I've gone out and pushed on the logs and I could barely even move the log. And I'm 200 pounds, 6'2", and I could barely even make the log shake, and the waves are just coming in and they're moving these around like they're nothing. So you can imagine one of those logs meeting you while you're out there trying to struggle in the surf. It would be over quick for you. So that's why they use these kind of wordings. Same thing here with Medford National Weather Service. The large logs, those things are killers. I've almost been caught in some stuff like that. I think we were at La Push once. I must have been 10 years old or something. And the sneaker wave, it was dry where we had been playing. It was dry for probably an hour. And the sneaker wave came up and just started moving logs. And we got wet, but we barely escaped the logs that started to move. Sometimes you just don't, it just takes a second. And sometimes you think you're safe from where the waves are, but you're not. Ryan's in the house. Woltalainen. Yeah, that's true. Out in Hawaii, it happens a lot. You hear a lot about snorkelists drowning and things like that too. Or like people on Maui, a lot of couples go out snorkeling, and it, I mean, I'm sure it's low percentage, obviously, but it's kind of, you hear about it almost every single year. Yeah, there's some polar lobes out there, but it's still way too far away to start getting excited about that. Yeah, shore break's no good too. I got caught in that on Oahu. East Shore. I forgot what beach that is called, but I mean, it's where the big waves, you're getting 12, 14-foot waves that are breaking right at the shoreline where you're just kind of standing there, and then all of a sudden you get pulled out a little bit and this huge shore break can slam you back in. Or if you're surfing on some of the areas that are notorious for that shore break, you can get really injured that way too. Yeah, South Point on the Big Island is no joke as well. I've been down there a few times. I'll be out there here for a little bit at the end of the month there on the Big Island too. It's hard to say what's going to be worse for the waves. I mean, there's big wave action. It might be favoring Washington at times, but like, so what is this? This is for tomorrow morning. I mean, take your pick right there. Vancouver Island, maybe the highest, but still strong waves elsewhere. The next shot rolls in there as we go through the day after Christmas. But yeah, big waves off and on. Yep, saw the Seahawks game. That is one undisciplined team. It's kind of discouraging watching football like that, where the Seahawks played a clean game. I think they win that game without doubt. I mean, you can't have those procedural and little ticky-tack penalties all the time. It seems like the entire season we've had really a lot of unforced errors and just kind of ugly football. But at the same time, they've shown flashes of doing things really well also. Like they played well otherwise and they were in the game, but just these weird procedural penalties and penalties nonstop. The coaching has to be more consistent with that stuff. A Mike Holmgren team, put it this way, a Mike Holmgren team would never have these type of unforced errors. It just would not happen. He just would not allow it. And I don't know where the attention to detail is, but it was kind of frustrating watching that game today. Yeah, I think the run game is a product of attention to detail as well. It seems like some of the players aren't on the same page. It just kind of seems weird. But anyway. Yeah, be careful with the ocean. I mean, this is that time of year. Wallowa County, Oregon. I'll have to look into that. All right, you guys, I got to end up the video here. I got to take care of the dog and clean up and do dishes and all that good stuff. And I'll do my normal briefing tomorrow at some point. If I do go out and see waves, it'll probably be later on in the day tomorrow. But otherwise, I'll do my normal briefing and we'll go over the windstorm one more time tomorrow, or the wind event. Shouldn't call it a windstorm. And we'll take a look at what the new models have to say, all that good stuff. But hope you guys had fun. Thanks for enjoying the live stream and checking in, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.